Hey everybody, this is Dan, the Real Estate Man, putting the real back in real estate, Mr. Multifamily Conversion himself, and welcome to Money Mondays, where we discuss everything about money, business, real estate, and I bring on some special guests, people in my sphere of influence, what's going on, open spaces, to talk about what's going on in the market, talk about money, and the goal of Money Mondays is to share some of my experiences around money, share some of the things that I've learned about money, I've learned about business, things that I wish I would have known starting off, and to bring on guests that are super knowledgeable that can help you learn as well. And before we get started, I had the pleasure this weekend of presenting at the Philly Real Estate Expo. It was a great time, and I'm doing a flash sale on my multifamily conversion boot camp. In this boot camp, you get the strategy that I've utilized to acquire millions of dollars of real estate. You will learn how to learn the zoning code so you can realize what properties can be converted into multifamily properties by right, meaning that you get to skip the variance process. You'll understand how to underwrite these deals. You'll also get my step-by-step rehabbing process so you can rehab these properties like a pro. You will get my funding fundamentals so you'll understand about hard money, private money, joint ventures, DSCR lenders, and portfolio lenders. And last but not least, you will also learn how to analyze that back end. So when you go to refi that project, you know that the deal will make sense. So if you're interested in learning how to utilize the multifamily conversion strategy, I'm offering that for $197 until January 1st. It's a flash sale. So click the link in my bio to get your copy today. All right, so we got a very good friend of mine. We got a very good guest coming on. I'm gonna bring up. I met this young lady a few years back through Jumpstart Germantown. I've seen her grow, her and her husband grow. Them friends, and let's get into it. Mm-mm. Except, come on, Instagram, don't be silly today. There we go.
Hello.
Hey, Palak, how's things going?
Good. I heard you call me a young lady. It's been a long
Yeah.
time since anybody called me a young
Oh, you're absolutely a young lady. Young,
lady.
vibrant,
Appreciate
really
it.
good energy, all those good things. How's things
It's been a long
going?
time since I've been a young lady, so I appreciate it. It's
Absolutely.
going good. How are
You
you?
know, I can you see me?
I can see you. Can you
Yeah,
see me?
I can't see you. Sometimes Instagram does this. I don't know why it does this, but
Okay.
every once in a while. But it's fine. We can still have a great conversation. I've seen you many times in the past, but and
Can you not
and
see me? Maybe if I do some
no, I
mess around with my.
actually, yeah, generally everybody else can see us, but for some reason I can't. I don't know why this happens
Oh,
from
that's
time
weird.
to time, but I appreciate you coming on, Pollock. I know you're busy. I know you have tons of things going on. Um, I like to tell people how I met a lot of my guests because I'm often people hear me talk about networking and the importance of networking and the importance of building relationships. So
Yeah.
I believe, and let me know if I'm wrong. The first time that you and I
Yeah.
met was through Don't Start
We did.
Germantown.
Yeah. they had a
What's it?
mentor appreciation
Yes.
something, and that's how I met you. Yes,
Yep. Yep.
that's how I remember it too. So it must be true.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Yeah,
So that's how we met. We were both mentors for Jumpstart Germantown, which is a great group that helps newer investors get started in the business. And we were just both out there, just kind of helping students
yeah,
get started. And I think we just had a lot in common, strategy wise, family wise. I know our children are about the same age. And so there were a lot of things that you had going on that it was very similar.
yeah.
But would you mind giving people just a bit of background about yourself and how you got started in real estate?
Yeah, and I remember what I appreciated the most about you, Dan, is just you always keep it real. And I appreciate the most, that is one quality I appreciate the most in investors, business owners, because I think that it's easy to just say that, oh, everything's great, but
Yeah.
we love this business and it has so many opportunities and it has so much growth, but it's also important to keep it realistic so new people understand that, hey, it's amazing, but it's also going to come with its own challenges and it's still worth it.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I appreciated that the most about you.
Well,
So,
thank you. I appreciate
about
it.
me, about me. So, I was a mechanical engineer for 17 years. I worked in engineering, and um, I really enjoyed it. I thought that was going to be my path forward, and everything was fine until my husband and I decided to have kids. So we decided to have kids. We were in our late 30s when we decided to have kids, and it got everything changed. After you have kids, you start looking at life differently. You value your time so much more because you want to give it to your kids. You really uh, understand that the importance of being able to make money and build wealth, because now you want to build a legacy for your kids. And so I started thinking about my path very differently once we had kids. And Niti and I decided that we were going to become a single income family. I spent a lot of time debating that and arguing back and forth with myself on whether that was a good idea or not. And then one day I told him, I was like, yeah, I really just need to quit my job and do something else because this isn't giving me any time with the kids. And I waited till my late 30s to have the kids, right? Like I waited because I thought that was going to be the right thing to do. And I never see them. So
Mm.
we decided to have kids, and I decided to quit my job, and he supported. He like backed me up. He was like, all right, we're going to do this. So he backed me up, and then we had to figure out how we were going to navigate this whole single income lifestyle. And I wanted to continue building something. I wanted to make a financial impact. And it kind of turned out to be a blessing in disguise because now we had one person who was able to handle operations of growing a rental portfolio, which we were doing it even with two full-time jobs, but being one person being available really then allowed me to learn the ropes. And we wanted to do it a little bit differently. I'd worked in factories all my life, and it was not very interesting to me to be at the job site a lot. I wanted to be with the kids a lot. And so I had to navigate that, like trying to do it differently, that needed time to figure out how to do it and build processes and everything around it. So it worked out. And yeah, we grew the portfolio from there. And now we're both financially free. He was able to also quit his job in corporate. And it's been a pretty amazing journey and very similar to yours, right? You also had a full-time
Yeah,
job and
very,
yeah,
very, very similar.
yeah.
I think that not I think I left SEPTA right shortly after my daughter was born, which was very
Oh,
scary
yeah,
for me. So
yeah.
Danny was born in 2014, and I quit SEPTA 2014. And
Wow. Yeah.
I remember as I had, well, I was same thing. I was buying all these properties, and I had a good portfolio, a good cash flow. But there was something that was that just scared me because like most people, I take taking care of my family very seriously, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I got this daughter now. Should I? Is this the right thing to do? And I remember, and I was starting to waver. You know how you get
Yeah.
that little voice, that little fear, and I was starting to waver. And I remember Erica said, "If you don't leave now, you're going to never
That's
leave."
pretty
And I
amazing.
remember hearing that, and I'm like, "Wow, she has the faith in me." It's not like I'm leaving a McDonald's job or Burger King job. This is a job I've been at 18 years with great
Wow.
benefits and all of this
Yeah.
sort of thing, pension and everything else. So it was what I needed to hear at that time. So obviously the path has been, what I've experienced since leaving SEPTA and becoming a full-time investor is it's just been
Yeah.
amazing. Um, but can you talk about what sort of where did you how did you start investing? Like what kind of properties? How did you first get involved?
Yeah. So we first we started with buying rent-ready rentals because we didn't know any
Mhm,
better. When I still had my job, we were saving up to put a down payment on rent-ready rentals. We were doing conventional loans because we didn't know any better. And then I was managing them myself, and I wanted to see like what is this like? Is it really profitable? Is it really going to cash flow? And
mhm,
then we did that a few times. And then when I quit my job, we really had to find a way to do that again and again with a single income. And it took us so long to save for one rental that, that we had to we had to be like, okay, if it's if it's taking so long to buy a rental with two jobs, we will never be able to invest with one job.
mhm,
And so then Nidhi found the BRRRR strategy,
mhm,
the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat for anybody watching who doesn't know what
mhm,
that is. But basically, what we do is we take a distressed property, we renovate it, and then it forces it to appreciate in value.
mhm,
And the difference between the amount of money that it takes to buy and renovate a property versus what the property is worth, that difference becomes the down payment. And now you can take it to a lender, and they, for anybody who doesn't know what that is, right? So they can refinance you out, and now you've created that down payment. You've forced the property to appreciate. You created down payment. So that's how we started scaling the portfolio,
mhm.
and and moved over to commercial financing, which then removed limitations on how many properties we could buy.
Mm. Yeah, so when you first started, you were doing turnkey,
We're doing turnkey.
right? Because that's what most people know, right?
Yeah.
Just saving up money and then putting money down on the property. And then I think and I definitely want to get your input on this, is what most people don't realize is that like saving money is the most inefficient way to
Yes.
to kind of get things done. Right? It takes
Yeah.
so much time and
So
energy.
long.
Right. So what did that first BRRRR project look like
Yeah.
for you guys?
So for the first BRRRR project was a property. It was a single family home. Um, we It was through a wholesaler,
Mm-hmm.
and some wholesalers do these open houses where you just walk in, and we had no idea how that any of that worked.
Mm-hmm.
So we walked in, there were all these people looking at this property, and by then we had walked through many distressed properties. It wasn't the first time, but we walked in with our
Mm-hmm.
contractor, and uh, they said, well, if you want the property, um, you need to put a deposit down. And we were like,
Uh,
we didn't bring a deposit. We
sounds
didn't
like
know
New
that.
Western
Yep,
was.
like New Western. Yeah. And our contractor lived around the
Yeah.
corner, and he said, I'll go a check from my house. Just don't deposit it.
Yeah.
So he went and his wife wrote a check. We gave the wholesaler a check and we said, don't deposit it. We're going to go home and wire the money. And so, yeah, that really created an amazing relationship with our contractor too, because we knew he was invested in our success, not just trying to make like a quick buck here. He was, wanted to build a relationship. And we did that first project. Of course, we did everything wrong on the first project, like most people do. We treated it like a flip. We went a little bit over budget because we were like, let's open up all the walls and make it pretty. Let's install all these, things that it's your baby, because it's your first project. You don't know what you're doing, but it still turned out to be a really, really great project. We bought it for $55K. We put in, and this is like, what is it? 6 years ago, something like that. 6-8 years ago, we bought it for, you can't buy that for $55K in Germantown anymore. Bought it for $55K, put in another 55, 60 into it. And then it appraised for 135 or 140 when we got done. And so we were able to pull majority of the cash out. And it really was an amazing way to see how the strategy worked. That, hey, we put in a little over 100K, and then now the property is worth 135, 140K, something like that. And then we took it to a bank, got it refinanced, and it was a cash flowing property. So it was an interesting first project, single family.
Yeah. Is there anything that you bought from your corporate background that was helpful in the real estate investing business?
Yeah. So the big thing is I worked in factories all my life, so I was very used to working with the personality that people at the construction site have, which not a lot of women do, not a lot of people who come from a corporate background do. So that was interesting to me. Like, I would go and bring donuts and coffee in the morning, because that's what I did at the factory. Like every Friday, Palak brings donuts, right? Like the engineer brings donuts every Friday. That was our thing. So I would do that at the job site, and that part I what do you say? I eased into. The thing that gave me a lot of appreciation for general contractors, because the kind of issues that they deal with are very different than what we deal with in corporate, right? Like, he's dealing with an issue where one of his guys didn't show up just because he didn't feel like showing up. And so he has to navigate all that as he runs his business. The one thing that I think really helped is I had experience running projects and working with various parties and keeping everybody on track, on budget, and on schedule. So I ran that project the same way. And that, I think that really helped. Like, hey, here's how we're progressing. Here's how much money has been spent. Here's how much is remaining. Are we on track? Are we gonna, and that really helped.
Yeah. So knowing how to kind of work with the working guys, and then having structure and being organized, kind of help you move the projects along.
Yeah.
What things, if any, did you find to be difficult, or did you struggle with starting off?
In corporate, even though I'm running projects, it's not my money. It's very different when it's your money. It's very different, and every $20 matter on your first project, because you don't know how much importance to. It's like having children, right? When you have your first one, you don't know which piece of, you don't know what problem is big and what problem isn't. So in the beginning, you think every problem is big. So that's what happens on a rehab project too, is you think, well, I don't know, is a dented fridge a big deal, or is it not a big deal? Is plumbing issues, is that a big deal? So really having a very steep learning curve there. Like, what does this mean? financially for the project every time there's an issue. So that was one thing I really needed to learn. And then the second one was really flexing that risk-taking muscle, because when it's investing, you are dealing with so many of your limiting beliefs and so many of the things that you've never had an opportunity to work on as an employee all at once. It's not just that you're starting a business, you're building wealth, you're spending your money, there's just so many different things that you're learning all at the same time. So flexing that risk-taking muscle was a huge deal for me. I had to really every morning loud music and pump myself up, like, you can do this. With 2 kids. You can do
You got this. You got it, Palak. Yell at stuff in the mirror.
Yeah.
That's
And then
Go ahead.
the last thing is, I really wanted this business to kind of fit me, because I had all my life I had fit into wherever I was put, hey, this is a position, you got to fit into this position now. This is a group full of men who are engineers, and now you have to figure out how to get respect from this room so they understand that you know what you're talking about. And I said, you know what, this business is going to work around me now. I'm going to take my kids to the job site if I need to. I'm going to work around their schedule. If my kids are napping, I'm going to whisper on the phone, you're going to have to deal with this. This is how I'm going to build this business. And it just makes you feel so empowered when you can do that. It's possible, right? When it's your own business, you build it however you want. And as long as you're ethical and you respect people's time and you are truly in it for the long term and building relationships, you can be yourself. That was the best thing that came out of that first project. I figured out, okay, you know what, this is gonna work.
Yeah. That, I think that's one of the things that I appreciate the most, is that you can basically build the business around your personality,
Yeah.
around your strengths. I mean, my kids have been going to job sites since they could, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny. One of the things that I like most is that, to my kids, it's so normal for them to just know I own real estate. They think I own everything, right? Oh, is that your property, Daddy? And or is that your contractor? So, just making these things that for me, growing up, I didn't know anybody that was really doing it. So I wasn't exposed to it. So being able to expose them to the business side of it, it's just been great. So none of this seems abnormal. It just seems regular.
That's a huge
Go ahead.
break in a generational cycle, right? Like, that's what a cycle we're breaking for these kids, for our kids, for your kids. Like, it's an everyday thing for them, their parents, to own properties, which is not how I grew up either. That felt, oh, that's a rich people thing.
Yeah.
That's how we always thought.
Exactly. Was there any other kind of mind shifts that you had to go through to go from corporate into owning your own business, or into do buying these projects?
There's so many. I'm trying to think of the one or two that might be. So, as an engineer, there are a lot of professions where you're rewarded for being perfectionist. You're rewarded for being conservative with your numbers. You're rewarded for being risk averse. That's just how the profession is, and that's how you're trained to be. And I think another big shift that was good was that I realized that there is a difference between being a perfectionist and chasing perfection and chasing excellence. And there's a huge difference. And chasing, this whole concept of perfectionism is, you're chasing that because it's easy. It's easy to pick on numbers. It's easy to just nitpick on small things until you feel they're perfect. But then when you're chasing excellence, you're really growing yourself to be able to make the best decisions given the information that you have. And that's a big shift, and sometimes you're making decisions and you know that things could go wrong, right? And you still have, somebody has to make a decision as and as investors and entrepreneurs, at some point you have to make a decision. And making those decisions and making bigger and bigger decisions over time, I think the big shift is to really understand the difference between being a perfectionist and focusing on excellence as opposed to perfectionism. That's another one that I had to, that's like the best mindset shift I think I've made over the years.
Yeah, I think that I've found, I mean, most people are, focusing on the skills, which they really should, because you need the skills and you need the knowledge. But ultimately, what I've found, and I know you've coached a lot of students and you have mentored folks and all those sorts of things, like the mindset is what's setting them back.
Yeah.
Either the need to feel like like it has to be perfect, and so they overanalyze every deal. Or they're worried that something might go wrong, and I tell folks, don't even worry about that. Something is going to go wrong.
Yes.
Something will go wrong. So you can,
go wrong.
yes. So you can get rid of that concern. That concern is valid. Don't even worry about it. But one of the things I've learned about myself is that when something goes wrong, I have the ability to think through it, right? So it's like a muscle. It's kind of like you were saying, like you only build that muscle by using it. It's almost like people think they're going to build it by like not using it,
Yeah.
or something like that. I mean, how much has mindset have you seen from your coaching? Lots of students. How much of that has stopped people from either getting started or reaching their fullest potential?
It's so interesting. I tell people that you have all the information, right? Like sometimes we have all the information. You went through all the modules, you have all the spreadsheets, you analyzed all the deals, you're not taking action. There's a reason why you're not taking action. And it's not just them, right? When I'm trying to up level, same thing happens to me. Every time we try to up level, we have to work through the same mindset issues again and again, right? I'm not worried about losing $100, $1,000, $10,000. Now I'm worried about losing $100,000, but I'm still dealing with the same mindset issues, right? So I tell people, like, if you're not taking action, if you're not being able to make a decision, there is a reason for that. And really just sit with that discomfort. I think a lot of times we are taught to just take action, and when you can't take action, you just move on to the next thing. And I'm always telling people, like, just slow down. Just ask yourself why aren't you taking action? And what I'm finding more and more is our parents raised us to the best of their abilities, and we're going to do the same with our kids. And if they were risk averse and they were constantly telling you, like, don't climb that tree, you're going to fall down, or don't do that because you're going to get hurt, that becomes our internal dialogue. And now we operate that way. And I'm sure we're passing something on to the kids that we don't even know, and they're going to have to work through that when they grow up. So it's not, trying to blame our parents for it, but that's just ingrained in us. And until we work through those and realize that, okay, that, it's the things that becomes a survival instinct, it really is not necessary sometimes. And we can really coach ourselves we can reparent ourselves and say, like, hey, listen, this isn't a do or die situation. You're going to be okay if something goes wrong. And I think that really understanding the difference between a true bad deal versus something that's just fear stopping you, that's going to be a game changer for anybody trying to get started.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like the idea when you said sometimes you just have to sit with it. I think that I think that I think that uncomfortable feeling is what most people don't want to do, and instead of, they'll fill it up with a whole bunch of nonsense. Rather than just trying to figure out, man, like, why is this scaring me? Like, what's going on here? I've gotten all the training. I have access to mentors and coaches. What's really going on here, and that's tough. Like, I get it. Like, that's a tough
Tough
conversation. And
conversation.
what I've told people is, a lot of times, to your point about how we're brought up. Sometimes we have to unlearn things,
Yes.
right? We have to unlearn certain ways of looking at things so we can learn new things. But if you don't take enough time to actually um, look at yourself and to be introspective in some way, like, how come every time I get to these points, I tend to freeze up? Something's going on here. So I think that's tough, but I do think that it is necessary,
Yeah, absolutely.
if you want real growth. I
Yeah,
definitely
unlearning. Yeah.
go ahead. What you
I
saying?
just, I, yeah, I was just repeating what you said. Like, unlearning is such a great part, such a great point. That's such a huge part of this. Like, unlearning all the basics that just become a part of who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Four Doors says Pollock and Needy's program teach you all you need to know. It's up to you to learn how to implement it. And I know
And
that's true.
same with you again. I'm sure it's right.
Yeah, yeah,
As coaches, we
definitely.
want
You
to
know what I
give
do love?
everyone
Yeah,
everything.
I
Yeah.
do. I do love the fact that now I see Nitty so much more involved in there, and
Yeah.
that whole process is that's definitely dope. I want to talk about the market
Yeah.
and kind of where we are and where we've been. Obviously, we had years where things were just gangbusters, right? There were it was decent enough deals. It was really great rates. Now, rates have gone up. They've dropped down a bit. How are you feeling about the market? Is there any advice that you're giving newer investors based off of where we currently are in the market cycle now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that as investors, our job is to figure out what are the opportunities in any market and what are the challenges, and learn to navigate those challenges and take advantage of those opportunities. So when we first got started, I was right after the crash.
Mhm.
Um, and at that time, everybody was scared to buy properties. So we were able to, buy properties fast, but lending was really tough.
Mhm.
And when I first got started, I had to call 90 different banks to like make a big encyclopedia to understand how short-term lending worked, how
19, did
long-term.
you say 19 different
I
banks?
said 90, but also I'm a
Oh,
little extra.
okay.
So maybe, yeah, I called 90 banks and I made a giant spreadsheet because I really wanted to
Wow.
understand how it worked. And it took me a long time. It may not have taken me 90 to find the right lender, but it took me a long time to find the right lender because
Mhm.
people weren't lending as easily at that time.
Mhm.
Then the market shifted. Then lending became easy. It was so easy to get 30-year fixed commercial loans and very, very low interest rates. But then deals were hard to find. And
Mhm.
every deal had like 5, 6 offers and they disappeared within minutes, right? All the good deals were gone. New investors had such a hard time finding contractors because contractors were all busy and they wanted to continue working with veteran real estate investors. They didn't want to take a chance on new real estate investors because, my contractor always told me, like, you look at 100 properties, they may not even buy a property. And
Mhm.
now you wasted all this time, right? So new investors had a hard time finding contractors. Now it's a little bit different. The interest rates are high. So you have to make sure the numbers work at the end of the day. Lending's still pretty decent. It's not that hard to find lenders who will fund your deals. Contractors are easy to find now than they were before because they're not as busy as they used to be. And the market has cooled down a little bit. So it's a little bit easier to get good deals. So I feel like every step of this market it's changed every couple of years. And every one of those um, spots in this cycle has had its own unique challenges and its own opportunities. And I think it's just our job to figure out, hey, how do I navigate this market? It's not about, I don't I don't think it's we're never going to stop investing. So we're continuing to do projects, and it's just a matter of how do we make deals work in this market.
Yeah, so I think you clearly laid out, if people caught on to what you were just saying, every single market piece of the market cycle has its advantages and the disadvantages. And as a real estate investor, it's your job to figure out, okay, where are the opportunities in this current cycle? I talked about this when the market was changing. I was like, yo, you have to have the ability to pivot, right? If you don't have that ability, then you're going to try to shoehorn deals that don't make sense. And so you have to you got to be able to step back. And I believe that this is where having education and knowledge helps. And why I do this whole Money Mondays, when you can understand how the economy affects things and kind of what's going on and what are the current variables. So you brought up a great point. Like there are. This is probably the time where there's been the least amount of activity amongst investors at least in the last 3-4 years, right? So yes, are rates higher? Yes, but you have less competition. So you want to pick your spots. I mean, when rates were cheaper, you had more competition. Properties were going faster. Now you can look at a couple of deals and maybe make a lower offer.
Yeah.
So
and you can always refinance in a few years, right? If
yes.
you get the property at the right price and your cash flow, as long as you're not negative cash flow, as long as you're positively cash flowing, in a few years, you can always refinance it. And so that's the beauty of long-term buy and hold rentals, right? The strategy is so forgiving.
Yeah.
That you made a mistake. You as long as you have the ability to hold it long term, you could always make it better in future.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's definitely true. I mean, and making sure that you buy right. If you buy right, it's going to really be forgiving, right? You can wait till rates drop. I tell people you don't really lose anything until you sell, right? Once you sell, that's when you lock in a loss. Other than that, yeah. I mean, if people are like, well, what if the values drop? Well, who cares? If your rental rates stay the same, then you're cash flowing. If your mortgage rates are locked, those things stay the same.
Right.
Everything else is just paper, right? That's just paper values.
Right.
Yeah,
It's not a loss until you sell. I'm gonna quote you on it. I'm gonna be like, Dan said. I love it. That's such a great quote. You're right.
Yeah. So the other thing that you mentioned, I think that people need to take into account is like how you called 90 banks, right? Is you have to build up. A lot of times people, they want to call one or two lenders and say, "Oh, these lenders don't work." But you have to put the effort in, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, to your point, now there's a lot more lenders in the marketplace. Like it was very hard to find any hard money lenders after the market dropped because a lot of them got wiped out.
Yes.
But now, there's a ton, so you got to do the legwork.
Right. It's much easier right now. So even though the rates are high, much easier to find lenders. And a lot of realtors also didn't understand what we did before. And I feel like more realtors understand what we do now. And it's much easier to have this conversation with them as you're looking at properties too. So things are definitely, yeah.
So there's a question from Will. He was saying that, are you advising students to BRRRR single family in this current market?
So I know that there are different ways to think about it. I personally think that if you're an investor who has never ever stepped into a construction site before, you don't have any experience managing a construction project, don't go out and take on a major construction project as your first property because you're going to be in over your head. I think I had done 9 or 10 single family homes before I went out and started doing small multifamily, and I bought 3 triplexes at the same time. That was like how I stepped into small multifamily. It was a very steep learning curve, and it was very tough to keep it under budget and on schedule, and lots of things were constantly out of control, and I had to really work hard to keep that project in control. And so I feel like if you are a new investor, it's much easier to start with a single family home. It's low risk, and I also think at any given point in time, we maintain a portfolio of single family homes because they're really easy to sell. If you need to free up some cash, then they are much easier to sell because, you know, when your tenant's lease is up and your property is vacant, you don't have to wait for other tenants in your multifamily to leave. You can sell that property and then redeploy the cash as soon as it gathers some equity. There are lots of things you can do. It gives you a lot of flexibility. So I personally really love single family homes, and a good portfolio would be a combination of single family and multifamily. And, you know, multifamilies are great for cash flow. So really good, a really good combination, a really good portfolio would have a combination. I think for new investors, I really love the idea of them starting with a single family home because it's a much lower risk option. Granted, your cash flow is going to be lower as opposed to if you went out and did a multifamily, but also your chances of failure are going to be lower in a single family home. And yeah, we're doing deals, and we've got people who are doing deals. I find a new property under contract daily that are single family homes. The numbers are working. Yeah, it's working. Right. If the question is are the single family home numbers still working? They are working. It's just a matter of, you have to understand that your cash flow isn't going to be as tremendous as if you stepped into like a 4-unit.
Yes. So what I've found, and again, just going back to pivoting, and this is something I've been saying almost every week, is this whole bird process it also went through a cycle, right? When I started investing heavily in 2010 or 2011, you could buy a distressed property. Most of the stuff I was buying was all bank owned, and the properties themselves were not in that bad of a shape. It was the banks that needed to unload the properties. And so I was able to go in and do mostly lipstick style rehabs, create the value, because it was never really the property that was in distress. It was the owner, and in that case, that was the bank that was trying to get them off the books. As the market became much more active and more investors came out, you had to find more and more distressed properties to actually create that same value proposition. Especially when banks realized they didn't have to sell properties for pennies on the dollar. What I've seen, and so what you saw in the last 3-4 years, and I think some newer investors are getting it a little confused. They think you have to do these fantastical rehabs. And that's the only way you're going to create this value, right? And what I've been seeing, and I'm curious if you've seen this, but I've been seeing a lot of these. I'm seeing some grandmom specials come on the market that have good bones.
Yes.
And they don't need to be gutted and done over again, right? Because not everybody needs a high-end rental, especially in Philadelphia. This is not necessarily a high-end rental market in every neighborhood. So, is that something that you've seen? Is this something that your students are seeing out there at all?
Yeah, I love this question because I think it's so important to look at what people are doing around you, because that's your competition, right? When you put your rental up to rent, I always tell people, like, before you start your renovation and go all out, look around, that property and see what's on the market for rent. And if nobody's doing central air, if nobody's renovating the basement, if nobody's putting in high-end finishes, then you're going to create a product that there is no market for. So look around and figure out. And you're right. I mean, we'll still do granite and we'll still put stainless steel appliances, but trying to put in the same kind of amenities that people who are flipping the properties are doing, it's not going to work, and your numbers just won't work, and your tenants are not looking for it. Right? You have to understand your, well, for our strategy, for your and my strategy, you have to figure out who your stakeholders are, right? Like our stakeholders are who's the end customer. One is your tenant, and then another one is, in our case, a stakeholder is an appraiser, and you have to make sure that your tenants are safe and comfortable and it's appealing to them. And then your appraiser appraises it for the value that you need it to appraise for it to be able to, for you to pull your cash out and still continue cash flowing. So if that works, don't go beyond that. That's not what the market is asking you to do. So absolutely, I agree with you. Like in the markets that we're in certain neighborhoods in Philadelphia, you have to look at what renovations being done and follow what your competition is doing around you.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. And also, I mean, we all know social media has a big effect. So when they're seeing all of these, really beautiful rehabs done, I think that's what automatically they think that you have to do that. That's the way that you create value. I mean, it is a way to create value. Let me be clear about that. So but it's not the only way, and it's not the only strategy, right? And now, and because we were talking about pivoting and what pivoting looks like, in my opinion, I'm starting to see deals coming on the market on properties people are selling for $75,000 in like West Philly that don't need a full gut. They got an old bathroom, they got an old kitchen, right? You don't have to blow that wall open. A lot of times people are looking for safe, clean properties.
And that's the value, right? You're creating value too. You think that value is just being created by a high-end renovation, but value can also be created for the person that's looking for a safe, comfortable place for their family, when you can keep the rent affordable for them by renovating it a certain way. So there's your value, right?
And some of the best deals I've done, is deals like that, right? Wait until that neighborhood goes up in value. Like you said, if you need some cash, or, I mean, personally, and not everybody looks at this differently, but I think you should be looking at your portfolio and seeing which properties are actually producing for you. And if they're not producing, then maybe consider selling them, especially if the opportunities are there and there's equity there. So those kind of properties, when that tenant lease is up, I'll go in there. Then I might do a little bit more of a rehab. I might refinish the cabinets, and if I didn't have granite, add granite and a nice backsplash. I'm going to tell you the best time. The best time, Palak. I mean, I was like a kid in the candy store. The best time was during COVID, when everybody decided they wanted to move to the burbs. And I had all these single family properties in Delaware County. Oh my goodness. It makes me smile thinking about it, Palak. Oh my goodness. It was such an amazing time, man. It was like Christmas. It was like Christmas time all year long. So, even we may never get that craziness again, but I think if you do have those kind of properties, it does open up options.
Yeah.
Four-door properties, it drives me crazy when new investors put too much money in the rehab for a burr. Yeah, I think just sometimes they're just not knowing. Um, so is there anything
Yeah.
that you all are doing different now, Pollock, or are you focusing on any sort of asset class?
So right
Um,
now what we're
Current?
doing is, yeah, we're heavily focused on Section 8 rentals right now. That's what we're focusing on. And Section 8, as you know, is a long-ish process. It doesn't just, you don't find a tenant and just they don't move in tomorrow. So that's what we're focusing on at this moment. Section 8 rents have gone considerably up in Philadelphia, so it's a good strategic shift to make right now. And I think the market rents are going to follow that trend as well as soon as things catch up. So it's going to be, I think the numbers are going to start looking really good for investors who are concerned about the interest rates too.
Mhm.
And then I agree with you. We will look at the equity in properties and we will sell one or two properties every year. And then it breaks my heart every time I sell it, but I know it's the right thing to do. I'm just
I
like,
guess
oh
that
my
must be
God.
cold blooded. I don't think nothing about him after they go. I don't think nothing about him.
Oh my God. I'm like, oh my baby, one of my babies is gone.
I, there is literally only one property
Yeah.
that I'll say, quote unquote, that I regret selling. One, and I regret selling it not because I sold it necessarily, but because I did it out of lack of knowledge. I didn't understand that I could have went and refinanced it at the
Yeah.
time. And so that's the part that bothers me because it was, if I did it because I had I did it just because I didn't realize that I could. And once I
Oh, I see.
realized I
Yeah.
could, it was too late. But yeah, that's about the only one.
There's only one property I don't regret. That's we had and I love the strategy that we use because it's been done for decades, and if you're flipping, it's been done for decades, it works. um, we had a short-term rental in the Poconos that we sold last year, and that's like the one property I don't regret selling. that's that's the only time I haven't regretted selling a property, because I just think the burst strategy and long-term rentals are just, that's the way to go, and it's really been so good for our portfolio.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's, you regretted selling one, and I didn't regret selling just one property.
There you go. Yin and yang. That's the balance there. So we're coming up on the top of the hour, Pollock. I definitely would love for you to let everybody know what you have going on. I know you and Nitty host events, and you have training and coaching, and so can you kind of let folks know what you have going on?
Yeah, so you can follow me at Open Spaces Women, and we post a lot of value-added content there. We also have a podcast, which, by the way, Dan, we should have you on. We'll talk. Um, it's called the Real Estate Wealth Blueprint. So you can come listen. We release an episode every week on Fridays. So you can follow us on any place where you watch um, your podcast, and DM me for if you have any questions about what we talked about today. Feel free to DM me. We have what do we have going on? We have a pop-up 5-day challenge going on right now. If you're interested, you can DM me, and somebody from my team will send you to the right spot. But if you're following Dan, you're in the right place. He always gives it to you in the most realistic way I've ever heard in this industry, and that's what you can hope for. That's not available on social media everywhere else. So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
thank
keep
you.
following Dan. Yeah.
I appreciate that. One of the things that I do enjoy as well is watching folks like you and other investors that, I've just become friends with, just grow their business, families and everything else. It's a great thing, right? Because
Amazing. Yeah.
because we also help each other, right? That's one thing too. People who watch me, I always talk about like bringing value, and
Yeah.
so I know that you bring plenty of value to me. I hope that I bring value to you
Absolutely.
as well. So that's super
Yeah.
important. Like when you get in these rooms, I tell people all the time, don't just try to come with some value, and you'll
Yeah.
build long lasting relationships rather than things that are just transactional,
Yes.
right? You have people
And
who are
don't try to
actually
get
want.
something. Yeah.
Yes,
As soon as you add value, like don't be like, oh, what did I get out of it? That's not what it's about,
exactly,
right?
exactly. But that's a mindset shift. I
Yeah.
think that's a mindset shift. I truly believe it's a scarcity, what I call poverty
Yeah.
mindset, because you've been raised on trying to survive. It's like, what can I get out of it?
Yeah.
Versus having a prosperity, abundant mindset.
Yes.
Like, hey, I can give information. I've given
Yeah.
away a lot of information, right? Sometimes it was nothing, but there has been times I've done it and it's opened amazing doors, right?
Yeah.
But you don't do it necessarily to get something back. But ultimately, that's how the universe works. I think if you put enough out there,
Yeah.
it's bound to come back to you at some point. And mine
Yes.
has come back multiple times. So I believe it's true, and I don't have a
Absolutely.
problem doing that. So I
Absolutely.
really appreciate you jumping on,
Yeah.
Palak. I love what you and Nitty are doing. So you're surrounded by like-minded people, and it feels so good to have that
I
around you. Yes,
thank you for having me. This was way too much fun. This was really fun. We should do
it's
this
it.
more.
It's a good time, and hopefully I can jump on the
Do
podcast and we
another
can chat more, and
Yeah, we can
hopefully
talk more.
have you out to like a brag event. But and I always see you around too. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's great talking to you, and I will see you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for
All
having
right, and
me.
everybody, make sure you're following Pollock. Make sure you're following Open Spaces Women.
And yeah, if you reached here through me, make sure you follow Dan.
Yes,
If you
sir.
don't know about him, he's amazing.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Bye
And
everyone.
before I jump, I want to let everybody know I'm having a flash sale on the multi-family conversion boot camp. You can click the link in my bio. It's good until February 1st. Otherwise, everybody have a great
That's a
night, and I'll see you all
steal, by the way,
later.
at that price. That
It is.
if you're a new investor, you are crazy if you're not doing that. Go do it.
All right.
That's a steal at that price.
That's it.
Bye everyone.
Thanks, Polly. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye. Thanks.